Welcome to the very first episode of Voices of Westward, the official kickoff of our new series where community association managers, property managers, and our corporate leaders of Westward share the stories, challenges, and perspectives that help us change our world. I'm really thrilled to launch this series with a topic that I think hits home for probably every single one of us, and that's time management in a truly 24/7 industry. Let's be honest, this is far from a 9 to 5 business. It's emergency calls at midnight, back-to-back board meetings, late night emails. I mean, the list can go on and on. So the real question is, how do we stay organized? How do we stay effective? How do we stay sane without feeling burnt out? To kick things off, I'm joined by someone who manages this reality with expertise in comm, Miss Kimberly Sutherland, our Senior VP of CAM. Kimberly, welcome to our show. Let's start with the obvious. This job never stops. From your experience, what does the true 24/7 industry in community management look like?
So the true 24/7 industry looks like we've got boards demanding, you've got homeowners demanding, you have your employer demanding, you have processes demanding. Everything is demanding your time, but there truly is only 24 hours in the day, and you have to figure out how to work all of that in one day, setting the right expectations.
And I feel like on top of that, managers are constantly juggling board packets, budgets, inspections, compliance, the list goes on and on. So how do you help your teams navigate that constant pressure?
So one thing to know is that this only thing constant is the change. And so it's making sure that they have the tools, that they have the confidence that they can react to certain things, that they can set expectations that make sense within them, and that they know where to go for the assistance.
I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about tools, because in property management, community association management, I feel like organization is everything. So what would you say are some of your must-have tools or systems?
So definitely the must-have tools are your calendar, big calendar, right? Or task list, whether that is a handwritten task list if you're old school, or whether it's a task list on the computer, whether it's the system and the software that you use that, within the company to actually keep track of what you're doing. But it is truly, those are the two major things that will set you up for success.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a calendar is the biggest part. Personally, I use my calendar religiously. I feel like even for work and my personal life, everything is on my calendar because it helps me stay accountable and it helps me not miss any important deadlines that I have.
Absolutely.
I also love the idea of like templates and automation. I feel like we have so many tools in the workplace that we can use to help keep ourselves organized. And sometimes it's just about researching those right tools and figuring out what's right for you.
Absolutely.
I feel like a really important mindset to have is that you'll never have a day where everything is done, and that's okay. Can you talk a little bit more about how we can shift our mindset to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is for sure. There's always going to be something that's going to get in the way. You're never going to complete your to-do list 100% of the time every day. So that really you need to get into it's okay. And you're looking at your to-do list multiple times a day because you're going to check things off, and it's okay that you do them out of order. You do what makes sense. And as long as you're continually reviewing that and you know that you're getting things done, then you'll be appreciative of just the stuff that you are getting done, and you're moving yourself along. You don't feel like you're sitting still.
Like how you mentioned that you don't feel like you're sitting still. In terms of that, like I'd love for you to walk us through how we can stay organized and keep ourselves accountable so that we don't miss those deadlines.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about prioritizing everything. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that when your client is giving you what they feel is a priority, and then what you know is a priority just based on everything that you've got thrown at you. So there's basically 4 buckets that you want to organize yourself into. And so it's important, but not urgent. It's important and urgent, so that you have to know what that's going on, and you have urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. And as long as you bucket all of your items that you have to do into those buckets, you kind of can set yourself up with the things that I need to do. But then it'll also help you when you need that time to just, I need to step back. I can still do things, but I'm just going to do the easiest thing first. And it'll get you be able to be in that mindset, and you can check something right off the box and be complete.
Yeah, I actually really love that, putting them into 4 buckets and prioritizing yourself based on that. I think that's a really great idea to do. I feel like one thing that we don't talk about enough is setting boundaries. So how do you set boundaries in a role that's technically always on?
Right. So this role, yes, while we're always on, we're really always on for emergencies. So we want to make sure that the boards understand that we are human, that we have our own family, that we have our own activities outside of work. And so we're there for emergencies. So in that fire, flood, or blood event, we're going to be there, we're going to take the call, and we're going to react. It's also when you get the request and you get the question of, hey, can you do this for me? I absolutely can do that for you. I'm going to get it to you by this day. It's setting up those boundaries. It's also accepting the value that you provide to them so that they don't take advantage of it. Don't send that 9 o'clock email. While you may have decided that I'm going to do some work at night because I'm bored and I want to do, just catch up on some things. Don't communicate with your client outside of the regular business day. That's what's going to set the boundary. They're going to know that if you answer at 9 o'clock, they're going to expect that from you, and you're never going to have that break. And so you have to be able to respect yourself enough to set those boundaries, and then they will respect that of you and only know when to ask things of you that make sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like Westward as a whole, one of our biggest culture initiatives is having that work-life balance. When you create those boundaries, I feel like that's when you'll truly be able to develop that work-life balance. And it's so important, because you can't serve your communities, you can't serve your coworkers if you're not creating those boundaries and having that mental shift.
Yeah, and you will also find that you've got when you set the boundaries and you set the expectation with the client on when to expect something from you, they will begin to respect your time, and they will respect that you're going to get back to them, and they won't micromanage you, and they won't chase you for things that will reflect on the overwhelm that I'm too busy, because they're constantly coming at you. If you set the expectation on when to expect something from you, it's just more respectful of your time, and it'll allow you the time to get everything done.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's something that's so easy to forget, because you'll get an email at 9, 10, and you're like, I have to respond right away, but you don't. And that's when you create that boundary for yourself.
For sure. And there's even, I want to go into that, if you feel that you do have to respond because it's on your mind, you're like, I've got this great response, we have tools. Gmail has a send later option, right? So there are other tools that you can do to send some communications out at a more reasonable time, but still allow you to put that response down on paper right away, because you want to get it done and out of your inbox.
I feel like one thing that managers really struggle with is feeling like they're always catching up. And so what strategies help managers stay ahead instead of constantly reacting?
Yeah, I think something we talked about a little bit earlier was just the tools, right? Having the tools and the resources. I really think once we get in the habit of outline our to-do list, we look at it. You look at it multiple times a day. You look at your calendar at the end of every day to see what you've got ahead for tomorrow. Look at it. What do you have for the week? Look at when you start the day. Okay, this is what my calendar is. Did anything else come in? Block the time. You have chunks of the day, whether it's from 9 to 10, you look at email. Then from 10 to 12, you go through, your board packets that you have to prepare. And you just block your time so that you know what you're doing to plan ahead. Or you block it out on your calendar. I need to do this board packet. I'm going to put an hour on my calendar. That way no one's scheduling a meeting with you. You have it blocked out. You know what you're doing. There's also ways to delegate when appropriate. Make sure that if you have your ACM or you have another team member that can do certain things for you that you don't have to actually do yourself, make sure you're delegating. It'll give you the opportunity to focus on other things that might need your high level attention. Another thing is to ask for help. Make sure that you know it's not all on you. This is a team approach. You have your ACM, you have your accounting team to help support you, you have your supervisors. They're there to support you and get things done. Make sure you're asking for help where you need it, because this isn't something that you have to do on your own to get things done. And it is just making sure that you're setting yourself up and constantly looking at what you have ahead of you so that you know, again, if all of a sudden something comes in, we all have that unit leak that's going to happen. And you have the angry homeowners that are going to call and they're going to demand that you drop everything. And while it's not an emergency to you, it's an emergency to them. We're in a customer service business, so you do have to stop mid-thought, turn over and help them with their issue, dispatch the plumber to stop the water, and then ultimately go back to what you were doing and reset your mind. And as long as you're giving yourself the freedom to be okay with some of those changes and pick up where you're going, you'll be able to just completely get ahead of it and not have to feel so overwhelmed.
I love that you mentioned just blocking off your calendar for anything. I feel like that's something that I personally like to do because it's really easy for me to get disorganized. And so every Monday I love to come in. The first thing that I do is plan my entire week and make sure that I have all of my delegations, all of my duties, all of my deadlines just in my calendar for me so I don't forget. And I also think it's really important to block off some time when I know that I have a busy day. I'll always be blocking off time to take a break, breathe, because you need that. You're just going to get so overwhelmed. And so I feel like that's really important. And I love that you mentioned delegating tasks and having a team. That's one of our core values is teamwork. And so I think it's so important that so you don't feel so overwhelmed. Utilize your team and make sure you're able to delegate those tasks. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. Before we wrap up, if you could give one piece of advice to managers trying to stay grounded in such a hectic industry, what would it be?
So the biggest thing I have is I always go back to, I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins, and I always go back to the 5-second rule, right? And it's basically that we all have tasks that we don't want to do. We have to do these things. That's part of our job. It's what we do. We're managing other people's communities. So we go back to the 5-second rule, and you count yourself down from 5, and you just go and you do it. And so you count back and you say, all right, I'm going to go do it, get it done, and you move on. You've just completed a task and you're done and you're moving on to the next thing. The other thing is that you want to look at how does a bull approach a storm, right? And you just kind of got to run into it. It's approaching everything that you have to do with the energy of, I just want to run through it and just get it done instead of shying back from it. If you're trying to outrun the storm, it's going to follow you and it's going to catch up to you. If you run into it and you just go tackle it, you're going to get right through it. It's going to pass over you and you've now just accomplished everything and you're going to feel so accomplished when you're done with that.
Yeah, I actually really love that analogy you used of the storm and the bull. I feel like that's something that I'll be taking away from this conversation with you, because it's something that I feel like it's so easy to forget, that you don't need to constantly be ahead of yourself. Work on it one piece at a time, and that's what'll help you.
Absolutely.
Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us and kicking off this series with, I feel like, the wisdom that we all need. And to everybody that's listening, thank you so much for tuning in to Voices of Westward. And yeah, until next time.
Thank you for having me.